How do you build a kind of focus that scares people? Well, most people think it comes down to productivity techniques, discipline, mindset, and identity, but it's really none of those things. It's none of those things. I'll show you using this example. So this man right here, his name is Tim Leatherman, and his car broke down when he was in Italy. He wanted to fix his car, but the only thing he had was a Swiss Army knife. What he really needed was a pair of pliers. So he took two existing concepts, which are the pliers and, of course, the Swiss Army knife, and he basically combined them together to create an innovation, create a really cool idea. Has a Phillips screwdriver, has a flathead screwdriver, has a saw, has a rope cutter, has all these cool tools in one package and also a pair of pliers. You look at this and think, wow, that's an amazing product. That should be an overnight success. This is what exactly happened. When Tim started on his prototype for his new tool, he estimated that he would take about a month. Instead, it took him 3 years to build this prototype. And with the patent application and prototype in hand, he set off to sell his idea. Unfortunately, the companies he approached didn't bite. For another 3.5 years, Tim faced one rejection letter after another. So 6.5 years between when he had this idea, when he was actually get it into customers' hand and make his first dollar. 6.5 years of focus on a single project. Now, that's the kind of focus that actually scares people. The Pomodoro technique doesn't scare anybody. Being productive for a few weeks isn't scary. We need years of time on problem for it to get actually scary. And now, because he did that, every lineman in the United States and worldwide has a really cool everyday carry. Every single guy in the military has a really cool tool which he can use to maintain his weapons. If you go for trekking or hiking or any kind of outdoors activities, there's tools that can help you survive. First responders use Leathermans. This tool would have been only possible if Tim Leatherman spent 6 years' time on problem. If he didn't do that, then we wouldn't have this. Let's talk about Michelangelo. This is young Michelangelo, by the way. He was in his 20s. And his first big commission, he spent more than 2 years to do the commission itself, which is this sculpture of Hercules. But even before he started the work on the Hercules, he spent years dissecting cadavers in a morgue to understand how the skin of a human being draped upon the musculature, the tendons, the ligaments, the veins, like what makes a human look human. Michelangelo decided to study that before he even started his sculpture. That's the level of time and problem that he put in, and that's how he's able to create absolute masterpieces. When he created the Pieta, one of the greatest works in marble that exists to this date, everybody said he must be blessed, he must be divinely ordained to make such things come to life. But when you ask Michelangelo, he says, if people knew how long I worked to get my mastery, it would not seem so wonderful at all. So according to Michelangelo, he did not see himself as some kind of God-given talent. He saw himself as somebody who had put in time on problem. And I'm trying to build some skills myself. I want to be a really, really good, like top 1% public speaker, which is kind of what I'm doing right now, right? I'm getting the reps in. To do this, I joined an organization called Toastmasters. It teaches you how to do public speaking. And best part is it's practically free. Amazing. Quick side tangent, if you want to improve your public speaking and communication skills, join Toastmasters. There's gonna be one near you, especially if you live in a big city. And when I went to this Toastmasters organization, I met this gentleman by the name of Robert Carvalho. And he's an ex-police officer. And every single serious word that he spoke landed with impact. People were waiting for what he was gonna say next. But at the same time, when he made a joke, when he was being funny, you could barely hear anything because everybody was laughing so loud. And this was a man who could command the room. He had presence. He could make people laugh. He could make people cry. He could make people feel inspired. He could make people feel informed. He had it. And when I saw this, people were saying like, wow, he's such a talented individual. He's such a natural. But I talked to him, and what he said was, he's been doing Toastmasters for 20 years. Time on problem. The undefeated champion of excellence is time on problem. So let's follow this thread. What's the common thread? We see that it's time on problem. So if it was so simple, then why don't more people do it? It's because of fear. What fear are we talking about specifically? Let's name it, because fear exists in the vague, not in the specifics. There's 3 kinds of fear. The first fear is fear of missing out on a new and better opportunity. That's why people switch things, because they think something new is better. It's usually not. Second fear is fear of wasting time, effort, and money on something that doesn't work out in the end. You give up because the outcome is not sure. The thing is, the outcome is never sure. And the third fear is that people of your age group will get ahead of you. This is the fear of being left out, being missed out on, the fear of other people doing better than you at life. So how to get past these? Let me show you exactly. So what's the promise of this video? The promise of this video is that I'll give you practical and memorable tactics that will actually change your behaviors. And what's the plan? I'm going to give you 2 specific tools which you can carry with you to the grave. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to show you exactly how I learned them. So I started my journey as an engineer. That's what I thought I wanted to do because it gives you security, stability, and of course, a good income, right? Engineers make money. So that's what I wanted to do, but I found out that engineering was hard. So I switched gear. I want to switch to something which I would find more fulfilling, more fun, less difficult. I thought I would find that in science. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is the exact lab that I did my degree in biomolecular sciences and genetics. It would take me way longer than anticipated. So again, I decided to switch gears. I couldn't stay with one thing for too long. I switched gears. I thought, okay, fine. Like engineering and science, that takes too long. Why don't I choose entrepreneurship instead? Why don't I start a business? Like, because when I saw online, it seemed like everybody, 20-year-old kids, teenagers even, are making like 6 figures, 7 figures through entrepreneurship. I created a men's fashion business. Like I tried to create men's robes. And I also tried to create a second business selling guided journals for people who wanted to do lucid dreaming. Neither of those businesses panned out. Not because the ideas themselves were bad. It's that at the time, I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the execution. I didn't have the patience. I didn't put enough time on problem in either of these for me to actually see what the potential was. I just switched again, but this time I switched to joining the military. This time it was a little bit different because I actually had accountability. I had one-on-one personal guidance. I started to understand what it would take. And I actually changed my behaviors as a result. I decided after I got out of the military that I would make 100 videos. I decided that I was not going to base my behaviors on motivation. I'm going to base my behaviors on the commitment that I've made. And the commitment that I made was I'll make 100 videos no matter what. Even if nobody ever watches them, I'll make 100 videos and I'll put in all the best effort to make those. So if you look at my channel right now, you'll see that there's 108 videos. At the time of your watching, there might be even more. But that's actually not true. If you go to YouTube Studio, which is like the back end of YouTube, you'll see that I have dozens and dozens of videos that are privated, which have literally no views, like single digit or double digit views. So I was making videos for a long time before anything clicked on YouTube. So I got these reps in. If you look at these videos, like look at these thumbnails. These are absolute dog shit thumbnails. I would never release anything like this now. But the thing is, at that point, I didn't know what good looks like because I didn't have enough time on problem. Only once I made almost 100 videos did something started to move on YouTube, and eventually I got my first like 100 subscribers, 200 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers, and so on. So how was it that I had always been switching tasks up to this point, but this time I actually locked in? Because I understood a concept which I never understood fully before, which is the graph between rate of progress and time. So rate of progress is what gives us motivation. When we feel like we're putting in effort and getting something out of it, we feel motivated. It's easy to keep going when we feel motivated. But that's not how the graph actually works. What happens is, as soon as you reach a certain threshold, your rate of progress slows down by a lot. And sometimes can happen really fast. And for a long time, you have no progress, even though you're putting in time and effort. This is called the moat. Some people call it the dip. Every single castle that's worth taking has a moat around it. That's what signifies that it's worth taking. So how do you tell if you're in the moat? There's some clues that you can look at. The first clue is that you're seeing slower progress despite the fact that you're putting in effort. The second clue is that you're realizing what the competition really looks like and it doesn't look friendly. And then you have this rule. The rule is so important, which is don't quit when you're in the moat. Why and how do you implement this? You'll be too emotional to make sound decisions when you're in the moat. Do not quit, no matter what, like blanket rule, do not quit within the first 100 days of starting any endeavor. If you're the kind of person who's quitting 100 days into an endeavor, you're not gonna make it. The thing is, this video is made for me. Everything which I'm saying in this video is said to me. Like, I am the recipient of this video. So what do? What you do is you set the exit criteria before starting, which is exactly what I did, right? I said I will make 100 YouTube videos no matter what and not quit until that's done. So I set the exit criteria. Like, until I hit 100 videos, I'm not allowed to quit. And that's what actually got the ball moving, allowed me to create the business, which actually gives me a lot of purpose and fulfillment and happiness and income in life. So this is Sisyphus. Sisyphus was a Greek hero. He was punished by the gods to have to push a boulder up a hill. And of course, every time he got the boulder to the top of the hill, well, the boulder will just roll down the other side and he has to do the whole thing again. This is where you get the phrase a Sisyphean task. A Sisyphean task is a task that never ends. It's a constant burden forever, and it's just a constant torture. But in reality, a Sisyphean task is actually impossible. Because if you took a boulder and rolled it up a hill 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, then the boulder would start to crumble. It would start to crack and fissure. And before you know it, you don't even have a boulder. You have a bunch of pebbles. You have just gravel. You have destroyed the burden. You've destroyed the boulder. The other alternative is that the entire hill, the entire mountain, gets flattened by your efforts and there's no hill to roll the boulder on. Either way you win, the destruction of the boulder or the destruction of the hill. Either way, the Sisyphean task is not Sisyphean, because success comes from doing the expected thing for an unexpectedly long time. So I tell myself, these are reminders to myself, don't stop moving. It takes longer than you expect it to. With that, boys, we're ready to go into the graveyard of broken dreams. I'm going to unveil each of these tombstones to see what's inside. The first fear, these are all fears, these are all copes and fears which people get stuck on for decades. And each of these has a solution. But what if it doesn't work? Well, it doesn't matter, because the asset that you're building is you. What if it all goes to waste? All the effort goes to waste in the end? Well, it doesn't matter, because the effort is never really wasted, because you're building your work capacity, you're building muscle. What if the effort I put was into the wrong thing? Well, the thing is, you never know what's the wrong thing. It might be all going according to plan, you just don't know the plan yet. Like, for example, for a long time, when I joined the army especially, I thought that all the time that I spent on biology and science and engineering was a complete waste of time, because I figured I will never need it if I made the military my career. So it turns out that today I own a business which relies on the fundamentals of biology. I didn't know it at the time. The things which I learned about behavior change and training from the military, plus the stuff that I learned from biology when I was in grad school, combined to make the business that I have today. The next fear is, what if I build something but it becomes obsolete? But the thing is, the work works on you more than you work on it. Again, you're building up yourself as the asset, not even the thing that you're thinking you're building. The other cope which people have is, I'll commit once I find my passion. This is a fat cope. Absolutely bullshit, because you don't find your passion. You find your passion by taking relentless action. If you're waiting to find your passion, I'm just going to tell you right now that you're going to be waiting for a long time and you're going to feel disappointed at the end. Another cope is, I'd lean in if I was my own boss. This is an ultimate cope, because everybody's like, well, if I had my own business, then I would log in for sure. No, that's not how it works at all. Making excellence a habit comes before you start your business. In fact, I would say that if you want to start a business, well, you have to learn to lean in first, and then that's the only way you can actually become your own boss. Some people will say, I'll commit when I'm ready. But the thing is, you'll never be ready. Nobody's ever ready. And lastly, brand new cope is, AI will make my skill obsolete. But the thing is, the learning of skills, the skill of learning skills, that will never become obsolete until the day you die. All this sounds good, right? But you might have a different excuse. But Carl, I'm stuck doing something I don't want to do long term. Let's say literally your job is to make fries at McDonald's. How can you possibly commit to that? How can you possibly lean in to a job that you know you don't want to do long term? Well, let me explain. It's not about your job. It's about you. You are the asset that you're trying to build. And anything that's worth doing is worth doing well. At the end of the day, if you're getting paid, you're an employee of McDonald's and you're expected to make fries, you're doing it, so you might as well do it well. And here's the cool thing, if you really think about it, a regular baseline fry cook at McDonald's is actually the result of $1 million pipeline of training which McDonald's Corporation has perfected. And besides, if you're actually a fry cook at McDonald's, you're able to observe your manager. You're able to observe your manager's manager. And these folk, the leadership folk at McDonald's Corporation, well, they're also results of multi-million dollar pipelines. So can you observe leadership in action? Can you observe how they make decisions? Can you learn something about leadership and training by being at McDonald's? Answer is absolutely yes. No matter what profession you're in, what job you're doing, whether you like it or not, it does not matter. There is something that you can be learning, and you can only learn it if you really commit to it and lean into it. The thing is, I wish I knew this when I was younger, because I was an optimizer. I would want to put in the lowest amount of inputs to get the maximum amount of outputs. Now that sounds smart, but it's actually dumb. Like when I was in college, I would think, well, what's the least amount of studies that I can do to get the best possible grades? What's the least amount of effort I can put into my homework to get the grade that I wanted? Like I was always thinking, what's the least I can do to get the results that I wanted? But this is nonsense. This is not how it works. That's called leaning out. You're leaned out. You're trying to put in the minimum inputs and you're expecting results. It's not going to happen. If it gets results, it still will be mediocre results. To get the actual results you want, to live the life that you want, especially if you want to live an uncommonly good life, then you have to put uncommonly different inputs into the system. Otherwise, how are you going to make it happen? See, it's so obvious now to me, but it wasn't obvious in the past, which is why I'm making this video, to really remind myself of these fundamentals, which it took years, hell, even a decade, really, to learn. The question is, how can you tell if you're leaned in? You'll feel accomplished at the end of the day. When you lay down at night to sleep, you should feel accomplished. And if you're not leaned in. And here's the thing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing your duty. If you're doing a job which you don't really find fulfillment in, but it's providing an income, it's providing a sustenance for you and your family, then it's fine. Like, just do that. Do that with excellence. Eventually, you'll be able to get a better position. But this, of course, raises an important question, which is, when does it make sense to quit? Well, let me tell you. First thing is, don't quit when you're in the moat, right? This is like when you're actually pursuing something that matters to you and you're in the moat. Should you quit? Think about it like a real castle, right? When is the worst part of the siege? When you're in the moat is the absolute worst part of the siege, because literally you're within range of the walls. So they're throwing down arrows and javelins and boiling hot oil and all this stuff at you. You're stuck in a ditch looking up. That is when life looks the worst. When you're in the moat, life sucks. But that's also the wrong time to quit, because if you run, you get shot in the back. You have to go forward. There's no other way. The only way is forward. So the first rule is, you don't quit during the first 100 days. You have to just be the man in the arena. You just gotta fight it out. And you never quit because it's harder than expected, because it's for sure going to be harder than expected. Because every castle has a moat. Every castle that's worth taking anyway has a moat. And it doesn't make sense to quit a moat halfway to jump into the moat of a different castle. You might as well finish out the moat in the castle that you've chosen to attack. Assume that the other castle has a moat too, and it's going to be just as deep, if not deeper. Because bigger the castle, bigger the moat. If you're ever going to quit something, you should be okay with the fact that if you try another castle, it's also going to have a moat. It's going to be worse than the first one. Thing is, when it gets difficult is when you've started. Until now, you're just doing the tutorial. Now you're facing the first bosses. And if somebody else can do it, well, so can you. And that will bring us all the way, boys, back to where we started from, to ask the question, well, what happens once you solve for work capacity? So once you start to make excellence a habit and you're not afraid of the work anymore, well, what happens next? So this is what happens next. At least this is what happened to me. Once I figured out how to grow a business to 6 figures, immediately I shot myself in the face, because I became overconfident in a sense. I figured that I knew how to make a 6-figure business. I knew how to get it like 10K per month. Well, what's the next step? Well, obviously, I should start another business, and then I can make another 6 figures, right? That's how I thought the world worked. I know that's not how it works now. So I thought, I have the skills to grow a 6-figure business, so I can do this. This is just passive income. This will be a good learning experience. I'll be leaving money on the table if I didn't do this. And I created 2 secondary businesses along with my first business. And the thing is, I could sell myself on it because I'm an optimist. I always felt I will work, but it didn't work. What happened was, I was stuck in this position. I was this little dog, and the entire world was burning around me. I spent more time on the side business than the actual business. And the only way forward was to take these side businesses around back and put a bullet in their skull. But the thing is, once I got rid of the side businesses, then the actual business decided to grow. And it felt like a vaccine. The pain of deleting my side businesses, even though they were cash flowing and on track to making 6 figures, I had to kill them. And in that process of killing them, I learned never to start side businesses. If I'm going to ever make another business, it means that I have to shut down the current business. You can only be a CEO of one business at a time. So what's the lesson learned? You can only pursue one thing at a time. And what's the one thing for me? The one thing for me is the Blood and Behavior Advisory. We help men transform their life in health and productivity. Like that is what we are masters of doing. And we've been doing this for 3 years. We have a lot of data behind this. So click the link in the description below to find out more. It just might be the unlock that you're looking for. So now let's go down and look at this graph. Well, this is not the same graph as before. This is a slightly different graph. So this is the 2.0 version of the previous graph. Because what I realized is once you start making progress, yes, in fact, there's a dip, and yes, you go down. But this time I knew that there was a dip, so that wasn't the problem. The problem was who I met along the way. You meet this woman in the red dress, and she promises you a shortcut. So this is an analogy which I picked up from Alex Hormozy. He talks about the movie The Matrix, right? Neo's walking around, he's getting a lecture from Morpheus. Morpheus is teaching him about the Matrix. And when he's walking, he sees this woman in the red dress looking super attractive, walking across, and his neck naturally cranes to look at this girl. And then Morpheus is like, hey, Neo, were you listening to me or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? And Neo looks back, and as soon as he does, he gets shot in the head. That is the woman in the red dress. It is a distraction. It is a shiny object which takes your focus off the ball. And it's absolutely true in every single discipline in life. So how can you tell if you're in the dip? There's new clues here. New opportunities look easier, faster, or more lucrative. And that makes sense because your ability has increased. Your skill level has increased. So you see more. Like every single day now, I see more opportunities than I ever did before. I see multiple six-figure businesses which I could grow. But I should not. The thing is, the current opportunity can start to look difficult, challenging, boring, or restrictive. That's just because you're used to it. You know where the skeletons are. You don't know where the skeletons are with a new opportunity. So what's the rule? The rule is you don't change direction when you're in the moat. Because like I said before, when you're in the moat, you're emotional. Because you're literally in the firing arc of all your fucking enemies on the walls shooting fire arrows at you. And yes, I know that people didn't really use fire arrows. So what's the implementation? How does it actually apply? What you do is you set the pivot criteria before starting. So never, first off, like blanket statement, don't change direction in the first 100 days of starting something. That's a blanket statement. But on top of this, you can set the pivot criteria before starting. So for example, let's say you're starting a YouTube channel. And I just use this example because it's easy to understand. And let's say you wanted to focus on, I don't know, cooking, right? And specifically, let's say you chose a niche within cooking. Let's say you chose like medieval cooking. Well, you gotta make the first 100 videos. That's non-negotiable. But not just this, but you shouldn't flip and flop your topics. You should make 100 videos about medieval cooking. And then at that point, after the 100 videos are made, then you can choose to pivot if you so chose. So it's not just about endurance anymore. It's not just about putting the reps. It's about consistently putting the reps on the same thing. That's how you develop time on problem. Because time on problem, right? Look at that phrase, time on problem. It's not just time. It's time specifically solving that specific problem that you're trying to solve. So it's time on problem. It's not just time. And the thing is, the ancients knew this. The Greeks knew this. So this is Odysseus. Odysseus is a hero of the Trojan Wars. He helped the Greeks defeat the Trojans, and he's on his way back to his family and his wife and his son. I believe he had a son. And on his way back, Odysseus is met with a threat. Along this very narrow strait, there's these creatures called sirens. They look like women, but they're not women. They're demonic creatures who lure you with their attractiveness and their song, such that you bring your ship to them and it crashes on the rocks and they capture you and they skin you alive. So Odysseus, if you look at this picture, Odysseus was literally fighting the woman in the red dress. You can see like all the dead bodies of all the sailors who didn't make it because the sirens got to them. I mean, they got their titties out and everything. Like these sirens are essentially the Homeric version, the Greek version of the woman in the red dress. So what does Odysseus do? Because he knows this danger, he literally ties himself to the mast of his ship so that even if he wants to, he cannot go and be with them. That's called commitment. He has literally severed his option of going to these sirens. And as you know, commitment is the elimination of new opportunities. So each of these sirens is a new opportunity, which is what Odysseus is trying to get away from. So let's leave the Greeks behind and come back to the present day, and in fact, back to Tim Leatherman. I told you the story of Tim Leatherman in the starting of this video, but what I didn't say is the hidden facts of the story. The first thing is, Tim Leatherman did not create 6 different tools and spend 1 year on each tool trying to perfect it. No, he created one tool and he spent 6 years perfecting it. And think about Michelangelo as well. Michelangelo did not also try to be a pro golfer, a skater, a banker, a businessman, and a musician. Like, he specifically sought out to be the best sculptor that he possibly could. Like, he specifically chose sculpting to be his means of art. And that's the only thing that he worked on for a very long time. And eventually, yes, he learned how to paint and became a master painter. That endeavor also took him years to master. And same with Robert from Toastmasters. He's not also the member of the surf committee, and he's not also the member of the Spanish speaking club. He's not also the member of the dog walking organization. Like, he specifically chose Toastmasters for public speaking and became a master of that one skill. Not to say that he doesn't have other skills, he obviously does, but you can only become a master as a handful of skills. And that's how I stopped falling for the woman in the red dress. So when I realized these things, everything works if you work on it, and nothing works if you keep changing your mind. You might as well get comfortable being dissatisfied, because it is the only way to be satisfied. Focus isn't about saying yes to the things that you want to do. That's the easy part. It's too easy to say yes to the thing that you want to do. Actually, focus is about saying no to the other things that you also want to do but can't do because it's not the main thing. And then you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. And here's a final belief of mine, which is everything is to my advantage long term, and everything happens for a reason. Now I want to show my exact thought process. Getting my first dollar in my first business took a year. Getting my first dollar in my second business took a day. Now I have the skills to take any business to 6 figures per year, but I absolutely shouldn't, because I'll always plateau at that level. I should focus instead on taking a single business to 7 figures and saying no to all the 6-figure opportunities that will be along the way. The new opportunity is never what you think it's going to be, and commitment is the elimination of alternatives. Again, all of these things are reminders to myself. Like, I'll be able to watch this video in a year's time and assess for myself whether I've lived to my ideals or not. Because, like, at the end of the day, what's the reward? The reward for time and problem is deeper roots. And to be clear, this is not just for business, right? This is true for any single skill and any single career. The only way you can have a big tree is you have deep roots. And if you think about it, a business has marketing, sales, product, and operations. And inside each of these are multiple skill trees. I mean, let's just go into marketing, right? Inside marketing, let's look at video editing. Like, video editing is a job onto itself. Like, that's an entire skill tree onto itself. But that's something that you need on your team in order to have a marketing department. Speaking on camera, like, that's a lifelong skill. You can keep improving that. On top of that, you have multiple platforms. You have YouTube, you have Twitter, you have newspapers, you have radio, you have so many different ways of marketing. Each of them is their own skill tree. Within sales, you have one-on-one sales, you have one-to-many sales, you have video sales letters, you have checkout pages, you have landing page copy, you have so many mechanisms of doing sales. And in terms of product, you have done for-you services, you have done with-you services, you have done do-it-yourself services, you have software, AI, you have physical products, you have hardware tools. There's so many things we can do within product categories. And then in terms of operations, you got to learn how to do taxes and legal, you got to learn how to compensate your team, you got to learn about recruitment, automations, communication. Like, each and every one of these little sticky notes is a $1 million skill set. So for me to actually get good at the game of business, it's gonna take like a decade, because each and every one of these skills takes like months, if not years, to actually get good at. So that's what I'm talking about when I say like time and problem. I don't know how else to put it. Like, if you want deep roots, you cannot get away from the fact that you have so much time debt, so much like ignorance debt that you got to fill, and the only way you can fill it is with, of course, with time. So whenever you meet somebody who's on the same path as you, who's doing similar things as you and is seeing success, like, there's just a connection there. You know what he's going through, he knows what you're going through, and you get it. Like, you just know. And here's the thing, right? Let's make it super practical and super actionable. Like, to become an engineer, it takes 4 years of undergraduate studies, followed by 2 years of master's program, followed by like a couple years of industry experience. Let's say 3. 4 plus 2 plus 3, that's almost a decade. Like, the thing is, to become a competent engineer, it takes a decade. So why would your career be different? Why would business be different? Why would anything be different? Like, everything will take minimum 5 years to get good at. And the thing is, it's not just time, like I said before. It's the cut and thrust. It's the day by day sacrifices and effort and time that build up to these things. So that's what my next video is about. The next video might have the exact same title, which is the kind of focus that scares people, but this time it's going to be a tier list, and specifically it's going to be a tier list of the day-by-day tactics that you can use to stay focused. So this video has been mostly like strategic, right? We've been talking about like big picture stuff. The video which I'm going to make after this is going to be very tactical. Like, if you want to win the battle, You got to be the general looking out from above, but you also want to know how to fight hand to hand. This video has been like being the general, looking at the map. But the next video I make is going to be the soldier on the ground with sword in hand, how to be focused day by day. And you really do need to have both in order to succeed. And with that, boys, let me give you 2 reminders to take with you. Optimization is impossible. Overwhelm is a choice. And if you want to win, you must lean in. So let me help you with the implementation. Like we've talked about a lot of strategy on this call. All these concepts mean nothing if it doesn't change your behaviors. So let us do our job. We specialize in behavior change. Let us do our job for you. Like let us hold you accountable to your deadlines, your weekly goals, and your time management. Let us help you with your sleep, exercise, diet, blood work, all this kind of stuff. Let's get you into the best shape of your life. Let me help you become the most productive version of yourself. This is all we do. We do it all day, every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This is our job. Like the thing is, you don't know what life would look like if you had professional accountability. And you got to find out, you got to experience it at least once. So how do you do this? All you got to do is go to the description. There's going to be a link, click that link. And once you click that link, you'll be able to learn exactly if this is for you or not. It takes you only 5 to 10 minutes to figure it out. It might be the best 5 to 10 minutes you spend this entire year. So with that, boys, I'll close out. Remember, if you want to win, you must lean in.